Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming back. I hope you all had a great holiday, good Thanksgiving, and a nice relaxing break. Yeah, thank you. I ended up putting about 3,000 Christmas lights outside, making my kids happy, but it's all fun. So, but we got a lot of work to do tonight, so I want to get right into it. Our goals, objectives for the night are to review the revised draft options. As you recall, last committee meeting, we worked through a series of options and narrowed down, and we're now sitting at option B modified, E modified, F, and then option A for the East. And as you recall, we were looking at the options. The way the options have sort of evolved is that we can really look at them in terms of a West in an East option series. And really we're doing this, and I'm thinking about keeping them broken out in the separate East and West so that we don't end up excluding, you don't end up excluding an option that doesn't look good, say, for the East, but looks good for the West. With the focus of trying to pick which one's best for each one, because our boundaries have started to align with 74 and the way the geography is aligned, it's going to be pretty easy to merge two options together if you continue to look at focus on the West and then the East, and then we can start aligning them together. So the materials that you have in front of you, we've provided some data and broken them out East-West, particularly the impact data, because last time you were looking at that like, oh, it's really hard for me to pick out East versus West. So we've done a little bit more, fine-tuned it so that you can kind of see it from that perspective. We have Office of Transportation here tonight, and we will be and they will be going through, I know that several of you submitted questions to us in advance. The Office of Transportation has reviewed the maps and reviewed your questions, and they have some answers prepared, and then have a general discussion. We want to try to have about an hour and a half on this section here, though. So really, the suggesting modifications is going to take a good amount of time. Several of you have given me suggestions and things to consider, which I have them incorporated into this PowerPoint. But there's a lot of them in some cases that we're going to have to spend some time going through them and reviewing them. So that's going to be a roll up our sleeves time when we get into that. And then finally, we're going to do a sticker exercise with the sole focus of having two options for the East and two options for the West going into the December public information session. And so when we get to this point, depending on how the stickers fall and how the numbers fall on the stickers, we may just present them to the public as an East series and a West series going into that December meeting. So depending on how the stickers fall, so we'll cross that bridge when we get there. As you can see, we're moving right along. We have this is our meeting right here. We have a public information session on December the 14th. And that's where we're going to be meeting at Monroe High School, and that's going to be where the public is invited to come look at maps in the same format as last time. We'll start with a presentation, and then welcome the public to look at maps in sort of a gallery walk format, where committee members and staff and consultants will be around talking with them. There will be a survey as well for the public information session that's going to go all the way through the end of the year. So it's going to open up on the 14th, and it'll be open all the way through the Christmas holiday. We'll probably take it down sometime in the first week in January, because we regroup on January 18th here to do our final recommendations, any final adjustments that you think may be necessary. But as we're getting here, we're really starting to get to a point where we really want to start looking at fine-tuning these options and not making a lot of wholesale adjustments. There are a lot of big adjustments that are included in some of the discussions tonight, and some of them may be viable. But I think that after this meeting, when we get into here, we're really wanting to start honing in on just any minor adjustments as you come to a recommendation. So the options now incorporate changes made by the committee at meeting 6. So you have those modified options in front of you, and you've got data that shows how those numbers play out, and also the boundaries and the maps per some of the committee discussion at the last committee meeting. Tonight we'll be revisiting these and reviewing them and seeing if there's any other tweaks or adjustments that you want to make to those. And then also, Transportation Office has reviewed the options, and they're prepared to answer questions by the committee. So we have from the Office of Transportation here. And if you'd like to sit down and make sure that one of the things to remind everybody is that this is all live streamed and it's recorded. So, so when you do talk, make sure that you're talking into the microphone. I've gone back and studied the things, and I'm like, man, I wish that they would have really been on the microphone there so I could have heard them. So make sure you do that so that we can always go back if we need to. But if you would like to go ahead and then I'll let you get into it.
Good evening, committee members. Good evening.
Should turn on green. There you go.
Great. First of all, I want to thank my staff for being here tonight. They could have been home with their families, but I do want to acknowledge them for being here tonight. And guys, if you would please stand. With me, I have Mr. Steve Griffin. He is the area manager for Parkwood Cuthbertson. Mr. Griffin, if you'll raise your hand. I have Ms. Tammy Davis. She is the area manager for Porter Ridge Cluster. I have Mr. Brian Joyner. He is the area manager for Sun Valley. I have Mr. Patrick Hoagland, who's trying to bend down. He is the area manager for Weddington. I have Mr. Henry Collins. He is the area manager for Piedmont. And I have Miss Mandy Benton. She is the TIMS coordinator. I also have Mr. Jonathan Ash. He is the technology coordinator. I have Miss Faye Crowder Phillips. She is the safety and training manager. And I may have gotten that title wrong. And then I have Mr. Reginald Torrance. He is the area manager for Forest Hill. My apologies. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. So over the past few weeks, we have received quite a few questions from this committee, and I wanted to read through those questions and also provide you with answers, and any additional questions that you have, we'll be free to try to address those questions and give you some answers to those questions. So if I could start, the first question that we received was, if they had, and I'm thinking transportation, if transportation had to pick one option for efficiency, which would it be and why? At this time, we are unable to support one full option without adjustments being made. Each option has its own benefits, meaning it's kind of like asking me to choose between my boy at the house and my girl at the house. She's a little more pleasant, he's a little more aggressive, so we have two different variables going on. But at this time, we couldn't choose just one option because there are some tweaks that we could make to all of those options, okay? In reference to transportation efficiency, one option does not offer all the variables without adjustments being made. At this time, we are not comfortable making a decision. Some options would work for some areas and not for other areas. Second question, do you have any idea why efficiency dropped after the last redistricting? Longer ride times, utilizing the same number of buses in our fleet, coupled with the reduction in overall enrollment and ridership impacted our efficiency rating dropping, okay? And if so, this is another question, I'm sorry. If so, is there anything we can do that would help to correct that? So the committee really can't help correct it, but with the district approval, there are some things that we could actually take a look at. Reevaluation of the Bell schedule will be one of those areas to probe. Reevaluating the location of our EC programs, considering many of the recommendations would also be beneficial that we have made. Reducing the number of stops in neighborhoods would help with efficiency. Traffic, road infrastructure, having, just an example of that, having more individual turn lanes where you could have through traffic. So those things will help with our efficiency. Does the 3-tier, 2-bell schedules have anything to do with inefficiency after the last redistricting, since several areas were shifted from a tier 3 to a tier 2, I'm sorry, excuse me. So let me read that again. Does the 3-tier bell schedules have anything to do with the inefficiency after the last redistricting, since several areas were shifted from tier 3 to tier 2? And so I would like to get some clarification regarding that question, and maybe I can give you a logical answer.
So I'd say whichever committee member had asked that, yes,
Okay.
if you could.
Just wanted to get a little more clarification on it.
Well, we got on our transportation sheet, it was explaining about how if there's different tier systems that they can't carry as many students. It says 3-tier system could transport up to 88 middle and high school students on 2 separate runs. By moving to a 2-tier system, that same bus on 1 run could not pick up 88 students on a single run, so an additional bus would be needed.
Correct. So just to explain, the 3-tiered system, you would actually service the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school utilizing the same equipment. Okay, and that is very efficient. On a 2-tiered system, you would actually use a bus to service the elementary school as well as having the middle and high to ride together. That works in certain areas, like on the eastern side of the county, because it's so rural that the runtime window, meaning the time that it takes to drop off at one school and get to the other, the runtime window will not allow us to go back out to those parts of the county and get back to the school in time. And I hope that answers.
So a real world example of that would be children at a school waiting in the school library while they're waiting for a bus to come around and pick them up, kind of making the second run. I've seen that.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
The children can't get on a bus to go home because there's not enough room on the bus. So they wait at the school for however long it takes for a bus to come back and get them to take them home.
Correct. But we should have capacity. We should have a bus available, or we should add a bus if if we're over capacity.
Right. To my knowledge, that issue has definitely decreased, but
Yes,
it's certainly in the beginning of the school year, I guess, while all of these routes are getting worked out and the kinks of the new school year get worked out, that is something that has happened.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
yeah.
Next question. Could transportation explain the statement regarding Highway 16 being a hard line, but only until Cuthbertson Road? Why just there? It is very difficult to get buses across the traffic on Highway 16. Cuthbertson Road has a light, and in the initial plans, the area south of Cuthbertson Road was assigned to Parkwood when we looked at the initial plans. So we made our suggestions or recommendations prior to seeing option E and option F. The next, I'm sorry, that was 2 parts to that. We don't have, okay, and the other question is also, do you think that the Highway 16 expansion being planned would change that view? We don't have any information on the timetable for the expansion. Transportation recommendation is based on the current road infrastructure, okay? Construction projects will limit, just keep this in mind, the construction projects will limit our ability to cross over and make it to those schools on time, okay? Just having that construction in the area. Explanation of UCPS efficiency with regards to recent transportation grades by the state. And I need a little more clarification. We get 2 separate grades from the state. We get an efficiency rating, and we also get an inspection score. And so I wanted to see if I can get some clarification on which score, which grade that you're speaking of. Yes, sir. Okay, efficiency rating. So the efficiency rating is, this year it was 90. Oh, I'm sorry, last school year it was 93.15% for 16-17. The efficiency rating is based on the expenditures from the previous year or prior year. Also, the efficiency rating is based on the number of kids we have the number of kids we have riding and the number of buses that we utilize. Meaning, if we have a bus with 30 kids 30 elementary kids and it's a 72 passenger bus, that's not very efficient. So we want to use less equipment and have more ridership. Would any particular remaining option provide higher ratings? Would any particular remaining options provide higher ratings? Unable to determine based on knowing if students will utilize the service. Meaning when this plan is solidified, then we really don't have a clue on who's going to ride or take advantage of transportation and those that are not going to utilize the service. Okay, so we will be guessing at who's going to ride. We can go with current data that we have, but again, some kids may take, or some parents may want to take advantage of the new alignment versus what we currently have. Okay, and then some may opt out of transportation option. Actual percentage of students at the elementary school, middle school, and high school that actually are considered bus riders. And so our percentage right now, we have approximately 75% of our kids are assigned to buses. And that's out of 41 or 42,000 students that we have enrolled in school. The actual riders, so you have those kids that are assigned that would like transportation, that has signed up for transportation, and we have assigned them to a bus, but that doesn't mean that they're riding. The actual riders that we have, that we calculated each year annually, this year we have about 50% of our students that are enrolled that actually ride a school bus. Okay. What are the largest routes? Mileage. I didn't calculate the mileage, but I can give you the longest routes. The longest routes will be any bus or buses that service the CATA program, the early college, the EC programs, and your special purpose school, such as South Providence. Those are schools with the magnet model where we do district-wide transportation. And so anytime we do district-wide transportation, it accumulates more miles. Okay. Where has transportation seen the most issues since 2014 redistricting? The Porter Ridge area, the fact that we are crossing US 74 back and forth to pick students up. Porter Ridge versus Sun Valley, Porter Ridge and Sun Valley, we're crossing for Sun Valley, we're crossing 74 for Sun Valley students. We're also crossing 74 for Porter Ridge students. So logistically, maneuvering in and around traffic and infrastructure barriers on US 74 on both sides has been one of those issues that we've identified. Also, the increase in county growth. Doesn't mean school growth, but the increase in county growth. Many more neighborhoods are being created or being developed, which causes more traffic, okay? Which option do you feel is the most efficient for the east, taking into account all the pain points, Lake Twitty area, Lawyers Road, and Unionville area? And at this time, again, we can't support one full option without adjustments being made. The last question, which option do you feel is most efficient for the west, taking in account all the pain points, and again, unable to support one full option? One other item, and it wasn't a question, but one other item I wanted to share with you, wanted to share with the committee. I know that the bypass is coming, and just wanted to make everyone aware that that is a added cost. Anytime our buses travel on the bypass, then there's an added cost with that. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that.
Why?
Why is it an added cost?
Yeah.
Because you have to pay to get on those toll roads.
Just in terms of just paying the toll, but not usage of the bus, just the toll itself, you're saying?
If we use the toll road.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So.
Okay. Okay. So those are the answers to the questions that you had posed previously, prior to leading up to this meeting. Does any committee members have any follow-up questions or any new questions that you have thought about, or any other questions that you have for transportation since they're here? Yes.
Thank you for answering those. Really appreciate it. Had a question, since you stated the efficiency for last year, what was it prior to the last redistricting?
I don't have those numbers with me tonight, but I know over the course of the years it has decreased. I don't have the numbers with me.
Do you know what led into that? I mean, was it ridership? Was it transportation issues, roads, other things that go into it, or was it a combination of all?
Probably a combination, but you're also looking at your efficiency being based on the number of buses that you have running each day, as well as the number of kids that you're transporting. It's kind of like your schools. If you have 20 kids in one school and you have 3 teachers, and then all of a sudden you have 2 kids in one school, now you may have to eliminate a staff member. So it's the same with buses. If the ridership doesn't, if the ridership doesn't support the number of buses that we have on the road, then we have to look at removing some of the equipment off the road. Yes, ma'am.
And I just also wanted to know about the ridership. Do you happen to know what the percentage was of children riding prior to the 2014 redistricting?
If I can ask Ms. Benton to join me at the front table.
And also, I think Mr. Ogrum has a microphone back there. If she doesn't, if she wants to, they could probably speak from back there if they'd like.
Ridership prior to the 14-15 redistricting, the actually 13-14 school year was at 65%, and the 14-15 school year was at 59%, roughly.
I asked him what he had said it was for this year, which it's 50.
I think we were at 50 this year. We're hovering around 50 or a little above. Mandy, is that correct? 55. Okay, 55%. Sorry.
Any other questions from committee members?
Most of the options that we have for the west side are crossing Providence Road in different locations. And with the statement that I know was made and looking at this, I know there's multiple criteria that we need to look at, but are there other locations that transportation has said, okay, well, if we have to compromise along Providence Road, maybe here, maybe there would be better?
And I'm going to ask Ms. Benton as well as Mr. Ash to jump in here because we actually discussed this today.
Well, with 16, with us using, if the committee recommends to use 16 as a hard line boundary from Cuthbertson north to Mecklenburg County, you know, there are several options there that can be looked at. With that being said, we looked at the neighborhoods right down there below on most of the options now that are being displayed. The neighborhoods beyond Cuthbertson Road toward Waxhaw now are being sent back to Cuthbertson. And so with that being said, those options would bring those areas back to Cuthbertson. And so the other areas would be a hard line and sending most of, if that was a recommendation, that would send those areas to Marvin if that recommendation was adopted. And so.
So maybe a clarifying question on that. The committee is tackling with there's trying to tackle all the criteria. So there's utilization challenges if they stay straight all along use Providence Road all the way as you had stated. I think what they're curious about is if the committee had to cross over Providence Road in various instances, is it more beneficial, or would it be better if they had to cross over? Would it be better if they crossed over further to the north, or would it be better if they crossed over further to the south along Providence Road? Is there anything, or there is really no advantage to either?
So it would be better, for instance, now, it would be better if they crossed over further to the south. And so for less traffic and the speed of traffic, it would be better. So it would be safer in that area. And it would be better if you would look at crossing more at the lights intersection. For instance, an example is Cuthbertson Road. If you're coming, when you cross Cuthbertson and it turns into Kensington, toward Kensington Elementary, when you go down there and you turn right on Waxhaw Marvin, those neighborhoods at current boundary attend Cuthbertson. Those neighborhoods there currently attend Cuthbertson. That would be the most safest option there for buses using and utilizing that light. And those neighborhoods coming to Cuthbertson and be district to Cuthbertson.
Okay.
If that brings you clarification.
Does that help? Did that help clarify?
So basically, if there's a light, that helps if you have to cross.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's so for coming out of a neighborhood and turning left onto Providence Road, that poses a safety factor.
Any other questions from committee members? I know Dr. McKibben has a question.
Thank you, Matthew. You mentioned that your transportation efficiency is lower now than it was before the 2014 redistricting, 93 versus whatever it was beforehand. And you probably can't answer this right now, but is there a way to ascertain how much of that reduction in transportation efficiency is due to the loss of 800 kids going to charter schools, as opposed to being caused by the redistricting itself? I see there's a bit of a spurious correlation here. There's more than one variable at work. If you've lost 800 kids and you have to run the same bus routes, I would expect your efficiency to drop because of that. And is there any way to measure that?
I think we can gain those figures by taking the DPI formula that they have per student formula and actually take that and times it. That number that they give per student times 180 days should give us the amount times the 800 kids that were that we lost from your perspective.
That sounds methodologically sound, yeah. And my reason to bring this up is because there seems to be a lot of discussion, not only in the committee, but the community, that the whole reason that your transportation efficiency dropped since the last redistricting was because of the redistricting. Again, a spurious correlation. If we can identify the impact of the 800 kids going to charter, we can then parse out to what is the explained variance of each variable. So thank you very much, sir.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay, well, we thank you very much for your time and bringing your staff out here to answer questions. And I know it feels kind of like a deposition here, but thank you again for your time and your support. Yes, sir. You too. So I think, it's like anything, you're probably hoping to have magical answers on this is the best option that's gonna really rise to the top. But I think what you're seeing is that it's what he was saying was reinforcing what I have been saying in my experience across the country, is that no plan's going to be perfect. There are going to be pros and cons with any plan, and so really the best plan is going to be one that you feel best adheres to the overall criteria. Knowing that there are going to be inefficiencies in any plan because there's differences in densities in neighborhoods, and you can't control where the schools are located and how many kids live in different communities and things like that. So I wanted to just go over the criteria, and I know it's been a couple weeks since we last met, but I think it's really important because we're going to start getting into narrowing tonight and talking about making adjustments. So I just want to go over these real quick. And these are the criteria that the school board has approved, in terms of as it relates to student realignment. So the best plan is going to be one that touches on all these criteria as a whole, but doesn't focus solely on any of the solely on one of these criteria. And this really is a good example. Transportation is a good example. If you focus solely on transportation, you start to get further away from utilization. You know, I think if you try to assign every student to their closest school, you're going to have schools that are 200% utilized and things like that. So you have to really try to balance everything here. But these criteria are maximize busing efficiencies in transportation, establish clear feeder patterns and continuity, so looking at splits and things like that. Balance school facility utilization, so look at where the utilization of the buildings and see how they relate to each other, and make sure that there's a balance of utilization. Account for future growth, and you know, we've been talking a lot about future growth potential and also negative growth. There are some areas in the district that are declining and forecasted to decline, and other areas that are stable and slightly increasing. Allow for grandfathering, and this is one that has actually been modified. The grandfathering policy has been modified since, I believe it was since the last meeting. And so there is some information on that, and I think that maybe Ms. Heintel, could you give just a little update on the grandfathering? Because I don't think we've ever updated the committee on the changes or the progress that the school board has made as it relates to the grandfathering policy.
To give an update, the policy committee of the board and then the Board of Education met on November 7th. And we decided to take grandfathering in tiers. So we started with high schools first, and we determined that we would grandfather all sitting high school students, so rising 10th, 11th, and 12th. We're not done. We're moving on to middle school next, which includes rising 9th graders. We haven't gotten to that yet. We waited for 20-day number and 40-day numbers, and we're getting breakouts on grade levels to make sure that it all works. We rescinded the no questions asked grandfathering primarily because of K-3 funded allotment and House Bill 13. The elementary school, as everybody knows, in K-3 funded allotment, we're only allowed to have, beginning next year, a certain number of students in each grade. I think it's 18 in kindergarten, 16 in first grade, and 17 in second and third grade. That will drastically change the numbers at our schools, and we have to comply with that, which is one of the reasons we did the capacity study and made the capacities at our elementary schools in accordance with House Bill 13. But you never know how many kindergarten classes you're going to have, how many first grade, second grade. That's kind of an unknown going into it. So we are still looking at grandfathering. We're going to take up middle school next, and we will go from there. We are also working on a sibling policy that hasn't been in Union County Public Schools before, and we're still talking about that in policy, and that'll go up through the board. In past redistrictings, the grandfathering wasn't decided until the option was decided of what they were going to do with redistricting. We're trying to make some of those decisions early, but we want to make sure that we're making the right decision based upon the data and all of that information. So that's kind of how we're going with that. Any other questions?
Yeah, any questions for Ms. Heintel while she has the floor?
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to double check. The grandfathering for the rising 10th, 11th, and 12th, that does not include transportation, correct?
It does not include transportation. No grandfathering has ever included transportation. Okay. So and if there's grandfathering in other grades, it would not include transportation as well. But that's where we're looking. And we have a policy committee meeting next Wednesday. I don't know if that's going to be on the agenda yet. I'm still looking at that. But we are trying to move it and make decisions so people know where we're going.
Thank you. So other criteria are, and as I've said, grandfathering is really more of a policy or criteria that's a focus of the school board. It's a policy decision, not really a in the purview of your work as a committee. You're working with more of the tangible criteria, such as minimizing the impact on students, which you have data on to see how many students would be impacted in any particular scenario. Making the effort to establish a contiguous zone, so don't create satellite zones, so one zone per school. Use major roads and natural boundaries wherever feasible to define attendance zones, which I think you guys have been doing a good job on that, and looking at that as a part of the criteria. And like I said, all criteria in no particular order or priority. The best plan is one that touches on all of them but doesn't focus solely on one element of the criteria. So I had asked the committee via email over the last couple weeks to think about suggested changes and modifications to the options. I've been shared things with you as soon as we can so that you have things in front of you so that you could do some homework. And I know a lot of you have really spent a lot of time outside of committee meetings and studying this, and I really appreciate all of your hard work and dedication to this, as well as speak on behalf of the school district here. Really the final exercise is to try to determine which two are best for the East and West. But before we get into that, I wanted to give the opportunity for committee members to make any suggested changes to the options that you have in front of you prior to selecting two options for the East and two for the West to take to the public in December. So several committee members have already provided suggested changes to the options, and I've put some slides together that kind of touches on those, that summarizes your comments, and I'll give an overview as I understand, and then I'll ask you for clarification, or you can always help supplement my understanding of it with your comments. I sorted them, so some of the committee members had suggested individual, just one planning block change. So I sorted them from easiest to most complex. And so I put some of the simple ones at the front of my list, and some of the ones that have some good numbers of planning blocks being adjusted, I put those at the end of the list that I'm about to show you. When we start going through this, I think a vote will occur on changes. If the majority of the committee feel that's a suggested shift is viable, then it will be separated into it. So if there is a majority on the minor adjustments to amend one of the options that we have, we could certainly do that. Some of the other options, some of these suggestions are pretty substantial, and when it comes to some of the ones that are pretty substantial, we can decide as a committee, do we want to make it a change to an existing option that you have, or do you want to make it look like say option B version 2 option, something that you got the B as you have in front of you right now, or do you want the B with whatever changes that are being suggested? So we'll tackle that when we cross them here in a second. And if there's not a majority in favor of considering the option, we'll take it off of the list, and it won't be brought forth and incorporated into our work. So I want to go right into the suggestions, and these were ones that I had received emails on. So I'm going to start with these, and if anybody from the committee has things beyond this or anything to add to this, we can certainly add more. And so these are just the ones that I had received prior. So one of the first ones was moving an adjustment was to move for option E, move planning block 133 from Marvin Ridge Middle School High School to Weddington Middle School High School. It would not impact the elementary, so it was just a suggestion for the middle school and high school. This is, I believe, a Weddington Chase subdivision, I believe. And this would take Marvin Ridge Middle from 105 to 99. Weddington Middle will go from 93 to 99. And Marvin Ridge High School will go from 111 to 104. And Weddington High School will go to 75 to 81% per that adjustment. The reasoning is to lessen the overall impact. And some of the cons of this is that it would split Marvin, because this area in these option is is slated to go to Marvin in this particular draft. One thing that I wanted to note that I saw is if I could take the screen here for a second, is show this to you here. So let me, okay. Okay, pull up our map here. So I'm going to look at option E here. And I think turn on our planning blocks. So here's planning block 133, which I'm pretty sure if I turn on the subdivisions that is Weddington Chase. Yeah. This, and you could see how this area in this option, the light blue feeds into Marvin in this particular option, and then the purple is Weddington. If only 133 were to be moved into Weddington, it would create a satellite. If you did want to make this adjustment, I would say that you'd have to move planning block 132 as well, which doesn't have any students middle and high school in it, so it wouldn't have any impact on the actual counts. But I would say that if this is an adjustment that you were considering to make, that it's something that would be done with both 133 and 132 to avoid any satellite area. And if I toggle on the elementary, you could see that this area in this option is feeding into Marvin, up into Marvin. And so if we do this, that I had identified it as this part of Marvin would be split, but it is a pretty fairly large subdivision, and so it would not be a really tiny split per se. Go back to my slideshow here. So any thoughts on that adjustment for option E that I just mentioned, or any comments from the committee?
I just have a question about this process, because if we made different submissions, and let's say we adopt option E, but somebody else made other option E suggestions, wouldn't that automatically take off certain things off the table? So and if somebody makes an option change to option B, there's like a domino effect. And because this is the first one that's being presented, technically speaking, when you make a change here, it's gonna.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you'd like to discuss
all of them?
Let's review them all. Okay. Let's go through all of them in their entirety, and then we'll consider, because that's a good point. So yeah.
In addition, there are other options that meet this requirement, right?
Yes,
So-
the other options.
So
yes.
why would we modify E when B has Weddington Chase going to Weddington Middle School and High School?
And so does F does as well.
So I'm just curious what this gains us.
It's a good question. I think that, it's certainly is a good question. It's something that, it's something that you could even hold if you don't want to make an adjustment now. You could consider this as an adjustment after the public information session. If E is the one that makes it through as a recommendation, but you like it, but you think that this is something that should be made, that's something that you could always do down the road as well. But it certainly is a valid question, since there are options on the table for that area.
And kind of following up on that, shouldn't we do the sticker exercise first and see what we narrow it down to, and then see where we should make these changes? So we're not making changes and then possibly an option doesn't even get voted on.
Well, but that's, it's a good question, and I've thought about that. My concern is that we do the sticker exercise and an option comes off the table, but it comes off the table because it didn't have the adjustments that you felt, I'm afraid that you're going to rule out an option that may not have been ruled out had you not made adjustments to improve its effectiveness. So that's typically what we do. We look for any adjustments before you make the final vote. Like, you know, you don't buy a car and then determine what options you want inside the car. You want to kind of like figure out all the things that bells and whistles you want before you make the decision. So that's kind of the thought process on it. Well, I'll just go down the list and talk about some of the others as well. So there is another adjustment, a minor adjustment. It's I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Cavaillon, maybe, is an area. The subdivision a suggestion was to move this area to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High. It has 15 elementary students, 4 middle, and 4 high school students, currently zoned to the Cuthbertson cluster. So this is a subdivision that sits right at 12 Mile Creek Road, at the corner of 12 Mile Creek Road, and I think it's Weddington Road. I think, yeah. And it's currently zoned to Cuthbertson Middle and Newtown Elementary right now. And the thought was, the reasoning behind this is to align all communities on 12 Mile Creek Road to the same school for transportation efficiency and picking them up. I did note, I went back and looked at comments because this subdivision hasn't been discussed a whole lot. It would require a planning block split because the Cuthbertson Middle and High School falls within this planning block that this is in. But I went back and looked at public comment, and some public members have requested to move, and then others have requested to stay at Cuthbertson. So it's kind of a divided mix of people in that community. And I could show you where this is on the map if you'd like to see it. Would you guys like to see that? You guys can see it on you have it on yours. You can zoom to the subdivision. Okay. Before I get too far, before I go any further, would you like to, Ms. Zarowski, was there anything that I missed on here on my explanation?
That was a recommendation I got from a resident.
Okay.
That I was forwarding on in.
Okay. Okay.
So.
And Ms. Kowalski, is there anything that I missed or any other comments that you'd like to make? Oh, I'm sorry.
Also, Cavaillon, how many homes will be in the neighborhood? Because I know they're still building. It has just started, I believe.
It looks fairly small. I think it's all been parceled out. If you look at the map, you can see the parcels. It doesn't look like it's going to be a very like hundreds of units. It looks like it's going to be something below 50 or somewhere. 39. 39. Good. On the 12 Mile Creek Road. So oh yes.
I was contacted by someone from that neighborhood who specifically said that her and her neighbors would very much like to stay at Cuthbertson.
Stay at Cuthbertson.
So I'm just saying. Yeah. She asked me to say something, so I'm saying something.
Okay. It was. I know that there's been comments from both sides to it. So. Okay, and so another adjustment. A suggestion was to move planning block 252, which is Weddington Ridge subdivision, to Parkwood Middle School, High School on all options. It has 4 middle school and 4 high school students. It's currently zoned to Monroe. It's currently in Monroe Middle High School. In options B and E, it's going to Weddington Middle High, and then Monroe Middle High. It stays in Monroe Middle High in option F. And the reasoning was to send to a closer school and also to increase the split feed percentage for Rocky River. And I think you guys can see that that's sort of on the southwestern section of the Rocky River zone that, that has most of the students are in that Weddington Ridge subdivision. And then there was another comment that was moving planning to block 254 to Monroe. And when I was looking at that, I saw that planning block 254 to Monroe, it is quite a distance to Monroe. And so I was curious wanted to get some understanding of the justification for that, because the justification for 252, which is next to it, was for distance. So I was curious about 254.
if you look at 252, I mean, there's different road access. I mean, they're next to each other, but really in terms of transportation far away. 254 currently goes to Monroe, and it's got one, it looks like 4 and 1, 2 and 1 as far as student count. It's mostly just land. So it was just for the fact that it's already Monroe and it's basically land with a couple kids.
To keep the
I mean, unless it could be divided, because there is a street in there that's off of a totally different road. So maybe subdivide it. There just is so many access points that transportation wise, I mean, it's Weddington Road, it's Willoughby, it's this little side street. So it's an awfully big planning block.
Okay.
And 252, the subdivision is in the very bottom of that planning block. So even though there's a lot of land there also, the subdivision on the mileage chart is actually closest to Parkwood.
One thing I would say about that planning block 255, 419, 256, or 419, 256, I think in F go to Monroe, and the other two options go to Sun Valley, and 254 would be right there with them along with 252. So if planning block 255 and 419 were going to Monroe, I would say 254 should stay. If they're moving to Sun Valley or somewhere else, that maybe 254 should go along with them. I don't
Okay.
know where as Sarah said though, I don't know where the access point is for that student in that planning block where the street is to pick up.
Right. Right.
It could be off of Willoughby.
I think it probably is. I
Yeah.
think that the only there's Arbor Lane. I think is probably the only. There is another one that's further up. It's the pretty large house on a large parcel there that I always marvel at when I drive by it coming into town. But that could be that house. But yeah, it's a. Heading into town, it's a really big house with a wraparound porch that sits on probably about 50 acres, 60 acres or something like that. That's the one. Maybe I'm thinking about the wrong area.
Is it yellow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on Weddington Road, and it has the red barn.
Yeah, it has a big red barn. Yeah, I like that house.
One question for
Yes.
for nearest school criteria. Is it nearer to Weddington or Sun Valley than to Parkwood, or?
Weddington Ridge or yeah, Weddington Ridge on the mileage chart, it's closest to Parkwood. I guess probably because access is down off of 75. Is that 75? Or Newtown Road?
So that's another one to consider. And I think all of these right now don't conflict with each other. They all are kind of in separate areas. Or small enough numbers that it's not going to have a substantial impact if they do get approved in succession with each other. There's some others. This is a series of changes and adjustments that were talked about. This is one where planning block 149, which is the Highgate community, to Antioch Elementary and Weddington Middle High School. Planning block 138, which is Steeplechase and Weddington Estates, to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High School. And this basically reverts these planning block sets. These are where they currently go to school, where they're currently assigned. And then I believe the reasoning is to balance building utilization and lessen the impact. Did you want to provide any other comments on those?
Just for the adjustment 5, that I had it for option B and then option E.
Okay.
So or adjustment 6 is E, I think. In other words, it doesn't say which map options there are up there.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't think that these are zoned. I think that in every case, these are zoned to Rayview and then to Marvin.
Yeah.
So,
Highgate is, yeah. So
no, but for one of the maps I had, because of the numbers, one of Antioch was over capacity. So I said for one of these maps that both those planning blocks should go to, or could go to, but let me read what I sent you and then
Okay.
so I can make sure I'm saying this right. So what I put was that I thought planning block 149 and planning block 138 in option B could go to Weddington Elementary School, because these changes would result in Weddington Elementary School being at 91% capacity, and that would alleviate the overcapacity at or some of it at Rayview. But the problems with that is that Weddington Middle School would be at 103% capacity, which is actually less than the 105% recommended in option F. And Weddington High School would be at 85% capacity, which would reduce some of the overcapacity at Marvin High School. For option E is where I said that I recommend that planning block 149 be left at Antioch and planning block 138 be left at Weddington. That would leave Antioch at 96% capacity. Weddington Elementary School would be at 100% capacity, but my reasoning was that it's projected to show decline in the next few years. And Weddington Middle School would be at 94% capacity and also help alleviate a little bit of Marvin. And Weddington High School at 77% capacity, and that also helps alleviate a little bit from Marvin High School.
Okay. Okay. Another adjustment for option F, middle school, high school, was to move 84, 85, and 425, which is Briarcrest North and South, Tuscany, and Pleasant Grove, to Cuthbertson Middle School, High School. And that was, the reasoning was proximity to Cuthbertson over as opposed to Parkwood, which is where they're currently zoned to in option F. As you can recall, option F just sort of picks up communities right along Newtown, but doesn't go south of that, which is Briarcrest, the Briarcrest communities in Tuscany.
The negatives to that, because I did also do that. The problem with that is that it would put overcapacity. It would make 103% at Cuthbertson Middle School and 101% at Cuthbertson High School. So just letting everybody know that there are downsides to that. Yeah. Yeah, Parkwood would be, yes, Parkwood would be even less. So yes, that's one of the, also the other, that's
utilization.
Yeah, utilization, yeah.
Another adjustment was an area that's right on the Marvin, the northern part of Marvin and Rayview, southern part of Rayview. It's right at sort of Crane Road and Ray Road. Moved planning block 112, which is Beagle Run and Foxwood. It took me a second because you called it Beaglewood and Fox Run at first, but I got it figured out. No problem. But this was to move back to Marvin, which lessens the impact since they currently go there, and you had noted that there is adequate capacity to keep them there. So that was another consideration. Another one is to split planning block 259. So Colonial Village goes to Sun Valley Middle School, High School instead of Monroe. Again, another reason of sending kids closer to their more proximate school than where they currently go to. And this would require a planning block split. I'm not sure how many students are in that, but I could show you this on a map if you guys can't locate it. It's right on the western edge of Rocky River zone. Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, the reason also was because that on that planning block, that was the only one that led out there at that Rocky River Road from that planning block. So that would make it easier to go to Sun Valley than to loop around. But anybody that lives in that area, if they want to comment that I looked at the map wrong or that I'm wrong about that, please chime in.
You say it loops around?
So when you look at the subdivision, yeah, can you show the map?
Yeah, can I drive for a sec? Thanks. And let's see. So here it is right here. And what's the name of the subdivision? Colonial Village, that's right. Okay. Colonial Village. Okay, so here it is. And so it's off of Rocky River Road, and it's only accessible off of Rocky River Road, which is the point that you were making.
And the buses would be there in option E anyway. So that was the other thing.
And was this a particular option that, or was it in all options? See, like looks like it's in Monroe in every option.
Yeah, it might have been every option. I can't remember now.
Okay. It wouldn't, option F, it wouldn't work because the west, but it would only apply to E, B, E and B. Okay. And
Yeah, they don't look like they would have a problem getting in and out of that subdivision. There's no problem getting in and out of that subdivision.
No, the problem is that it's a lot closer for them to just make a right and go up to Sun Valley and down around versus going all the way around to Monroe Middle. That was all. It was a transportation thing.
okay. Another adjustment is for options B, E, and F of the Lawyers Road communities, planning block 273, 276, 275, 274, 278, and 387. The thought was to keep it in Fairview, but then let Fairview split to Porter Ridge Middle High. And that was the comment that you had made. Yes.
So the only thing comment I have on that one is based on just the first information we got. Our area of the county is going to the 6th closest elementary school, which is kind of contradicts the neighborhood school concept. And then also in the last meeting, I believe you moved Alexander Farms and Santa Claus Road to Fairview to help with that capacity and alleviate some Unionville capacity. So you made those changes to adjust the Fairview capacity.
To bring them up.
Yeah.
And another thing I was looking at just a ballpark number on all these numbers. And with if this were to happen, it may bring Fairview up to a effective utilization, but I think you may end up taking Stallings down to a real low utilization because they're all zoned to Stallings. So then you're looking at going back and looking at maybe something that's closer to what the A East option is, which is that area goes in Fairview.
Right, and the A East option doesn't fix any of the nuances from the last redistricting.
In that region.
Yeah,
right.
in the east side.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a fair point. I was looking at it from an impact for kids thing, like instead of moving, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now this one is one where we start getting into the more complex scenarios. There was one, this is something that where I had a good sort of a summary. It gives a lot of good data and information, and I have some notes here on it as well. And I'll start, and then if there's anything that I'm missing. I was looking at these and studying them, and they're basically in little an adjustment sort of blocks that can be related or you know, that they can be chosen independent of each other or possibly in sync with each other. This first adjustment is an adjustment for the middle school, high school. So these are planning blocks 335, 400, and 401 that were suggested to move to from East Union Middle and Forest Hills High to Monroe Middle High. If these go, and we have the counts over here, and so there's data that Mr. Hanage put together on utilization, and you could see East Union Middle would go from 84 to 75. Monroe Middle would go from 78 to 87, and then Forest Hills High would go from 73 to 66, and Monroe High would go 81 to 88%. So that was a middle school, high school adjustment, and I think that the reasoning was to help get kids closer to school, closer to the home, neighborhood school concept, and transportation, which lends to transportation distance, and also helping with feeder pattern the splits, because the current feeder pattern split. Okay, so is that correct? And no, this is only that the 5% split, though. I think that's isn't that primary? Is that elementary to middle split? That 5%. Okay, so if you change the middle schools, then it'll increase the percent split for Rock Rest. So that was one adjustment. Another adjustment here, and these are kind of can be sort of grouped together or not, but this one, the adjustment 2, is a east to Walter Bickett, and then a Walter Bickett to Monroe. So in this one, it's elementary based. Middle and high school doesn't change, but this would be East Elementary would go to Walter Bickett to planning block 294, and then 34 and 35 would be moved from Walter Bickett to East. So it's kind of a swap, right, of planning blocks. The adjusted utilization really is not impacted. There's not much of an. It's kind of almost an even swap in terms of making the adjustments. And the reasoning again was transportation and neighborhood schools. Is that right? Then there was another one here that puts has Walter Bickett to Rocky River, and planning blocks 41 through 44, moving from Walter Bickett Elementary to Rocky River. The middle high school is not impacted in this one, and the utilization for this would be 95% in option F, and these are all option F adjustments, by the way. That's one thing I should note. Only option F is 95% down to 85% for Walter Bickett, and then Rocky River goes 87 to 99% if this were to occur. Walter Bickett to Rocky River. And then if you were to use both of these together, 2 and 3, since it's such a minimal adjustment, it would be comparable. This Rocky River would essentially be somewhere, they would be at 99% still per this, but Walter Bickett would go, let's see, up 1 percentage point, so it would be 86% in this particular scenario. Do you guys have any questions about those or any comments? The thoughts with that adjustment 3 in this one was the utilization, lower utilization of, I'm not sure which school, Walter Bickett, lower the utilization of Walter Bickett, and then it's difficult for transportation to cross the railroad track in this area, and no overpass or no underpass. Are you guys clear on that? Did you guys were able to see it on the map? Okay. There was another series of adjustments here for that send area, they're all currently in Rocky River, and they would go to, there's a group of them, 256, 419, and 194, and 257 would go from Rocky River to Shiloh. And then also, I believe, 258, 255, these are more of a middle high school adjustment. And then we have, let's see, again, Monroe to Sun Valley for 253. Parkwood to Monroe for 174, 176. And then let's see, Rocky River to Wesley Chapel for 252 and 254. And then you've got an adjustment, well, 173 and planning block 31 from Parkwood to Rocky River to Western Union. And then 175 would be Rocky River to Western Union as well. And there's some data here to sort of to support this, or to reference in these adjustments. First off, this first series shows if it's in isolation, if it's only adjustment 4 is made, what the before and after utilization would be for option F. And then this down here is if this adjustment were made along with adjustments 1 and 3, what would the numbers look like? And I can leave this up when we do get a chance to look at this. This is a lot. There's a lot of adjustments being made in this option, in this particular suggestion. This is one where I may suggest, if you do consider this, that it's a separate option off of F, as opposed to a modification, tweak to F, because it's pretty substantial. If it's something that you think that we should take for to the next step for the stickers. Is there anything else?
I think just sort of the central rationale in this adjustment is to use Rocky River Road as a sensible and simple boundary in that planning area.
Okay. All right. So there's another one. I think we have one more here that I have noted. And this is one that was done by a small group of the committee members who did some homework and went to libraries and studied some things. But these are some adjustments to the maps to bring them closer to adhering to the criteria. Map B, planning block 93, would go to Marvin, and this is an area that's the sort of the northwest corner of Sandy, right? Sandy Ridge. That's currently in Sandy Ridge, and it would go at the northwest corner of Sandy Ridge. That would be zoned to Marvin. This is what you see. You see this configuration in Map F, I believe. This planning block is in Marvin, and this would put Marvin at 92, and they even looked at the forecasted changes for enrollment to kind of get an idea on change. And then Sandy would be at 92. They would both be at 92%. Sandy would be at 84, 85% next year. Marvin would be 90 next year. Planning block 89, or part of it, Trayton Homes in Oak Grove to Sandy Ridge, which helps relieve Kensington. So this is the northeast corner of the planning block, a new construction area. It's really no population in there right now, but it was more of a proactive measure that am I correct on that? For future change, to try to keep Kensington down. Another one, planning block 140, back to Weddington Elementary from Rayview. And this is an area that's east of Providence Road that was moved into Rayview in this option. It puts Rayview at 101.2% current, which, remember that Rayview's enrollment is declining has been declining pretty substantially over the years and is forecasted to. And it's at 97% next year. And then it puts Weddington Elementary at 91% currently and 95% next year. And it was also a comment that was brought from public input. For both maps, so that was those are just adjustments for map B. For maps B and E, There's planning blocks 419 and 256 to move to Shiloh out of Rocky River. And I think that what it was is when you guys made adjustments at the last time, you didn't, you could see on paper here, Rocky River's, I think, at 108%. And so I think these are adjustments to bring Rocky River down into a below 100. Is that right?
I think they're really similar to Lee's suggestions for F, actually. Now that
Okay.
I looked at his, they look really similar as far as shifting to Shiloh.
Okay. So it puts Shiloh at 86%, currently at 83% next year. Rocky River would be 94% down to 93. So it gives them the utilization balance. Planning blocks 173, 174, 175, 176, and 31. Keep them at Parkwood. They were switched to Monroe in these options, B and E. And any comments on that? You guys want to make any comments on those adjustments?
I mean, it was just basically keeping them at Parkwood, which is their closest school, instead of moving them. And
Okay.
then that would help the utilization at Parkwood.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lessens the impact. Okay. Then there was planning block 335 and 400 and 401 for maps B and E. The move to Forest Hills, East Union, from Forest Hills and East Union to Monroe Middle and High. And that moves 103 at middle school and 100 at high school. Puts East Union at 74%, or around 75%. Monroe would be, let's see, yeah, Monroe Middle would be 80%, and then Forest Hills High would be 66%, and Monroe High would be 81% with these adjustments to map B and E. And then maps E and F are a middle high school adjustment. Planning block 240 and 241 was to keep them at Poplin Elementary and Porter Ridge. And this shifts them on these maps from Piedmont to Porter Ridge. And there's 17 middle and 40 high school students. And it puts Piedmont at 96%, Porter Ridge Middle at 94%, and then Piedmont High would be 80%, Porter Ridge at High would be 95%.
And that was just because there was a strange, really small split. But if you all feel like they'd rather have the split, it just seemed like it was a really tiny percent having the split.
And okay, so that is everything that I have. Comments?
Before you leave that screen,
Yeah.
Matthew, Dr. McKibben, did you have some concerns with 335, 400, and 401? I saw you kind of have that look.
That was the same block that actually Lee also recommended
Yeah,
moving
yeah.
that
No,
1 mile.
we got that. I'm just talking about him. He had that look, and I'm just inquiring.
I'm sorry.
What his what was going on in his head that he wasn't saying. Yes, it was.
Well, in terms of the capacity, it doesn't have that much net impact. You're just changing. And my assumption is this is more for transportation closest to school, correct? Okay. So in that aspect, you're not changing the capacity numbers all that much. You know, so in that from a demographic point of view, it doesn't have that much impact. You know, we don't have any idea on characteristics, but at pure numbers, you know, anything within 5% is pretty close. My concern actually on the topic is looking at areas where you already see here's his current, and then next year you see like a 4, 5, 6% drop already in the forecast. That's a concern to me because that means you may be drawing away from a trend, particularly in places like Rayview and Sandy and things like that. So, but I don't see that problem in the 35, 400, 401 options there. So I would say from a demographic point of view, it's probably pretty acceptable.
Thank you, Doc.
Any other comments about this particular series of suggestions, changes? So what I I've been thinking about this too, and how these all going to fit together, and I think that with this series of adjustments and these adjustments, we may want to have them look at two alternative options that because there are pretty a lot of adjustments. So this would be, since these are all to F, these would be F F-1. This would be option F-1 on the stickers, if you guys feel like it's something that you want to put up there for the sticker exercise. And these, I would call these, I would have these be B-1 and then E-1 and then probably F-2 is what I would probably, if we do decide the other one goes through, then it would be F-2 to keep them clean and make sure that that we're not mixing and creating any issues with them. These other ones prior to this are really ones that we can evaluate on a case-by-case basis, I believe, and look at making adjustments, modifications to the current boundaries, the current options that you have, as opposed to having it be a new option for consideration. You guys okay with that? Any thoughts about that?
How do we aggregate all of this on the fly? So we could look at it in Lee, how long did you spend on that? Hours, right? I mean,
a while, right?
Yeah. And I didn't realize that committee members could get together and work out adjustments, because that's something that I would have taken advantage of if I knew. So for me, in the small window here, to try to break down Lee's changes is, and then aggregate that with all the other. So I'm asking for your help. How do we do that?
And that's why I was saying that these adjustments are noted on the sheet here. It shows the adjusted utilizations. And so that's why I was suggesting that this would be its own variation of an option, and it wouldn't be incorporated into other components that have been suggested at this point. And then the same thing with this one. This shows adjusted impacts of utilizations off of what you're looking at now, so you could make a determination if you think it's viable. That's why, because I don't think that you could aggregate this map or these adjustments with these, and I wouldn't be able to do that in enough time to give. I wouldn't be able to do that to give you numbers. And some of these I received today, so I'm kind of building the ship as we sail it, but I'm trying to give you updated information so that you can be informed on it as well.
Matt, one other thing too, these last two are changing, although there are some similarities between the two as well. They're more unique and widespread, whereas many of the other ones, you already see this on one of the other options, so there's why incorporate redundancy by putting it on all the maps, all the maps would lose their uniqueness then. So the aforementioned ones you probably can look at individually, going, well, right off the bat, if it's on another map already, why bother putting it on this one? Okay. And two, someone eyeball it and see if it's viable in itself. There may be more overriding trends going at it than this, whereas these are much more comprehensive and unique.
Yeah, I agree.
So what would get presented to the public? Is it just the maps that we're voting on tonight, or is it that plus the, the 1, the 2, the extra?
What I want to do is I want to go through each of these, the minor adjustments, to see if it's something that you want to incorporate into the existing options that you have in front of you right now. And if you a yes or no vote to see if we have a majority that agrees with it, then it's something that we'll carry on, and it'll be, and I'll note it on the sheet, it'll be, say, option A with these adjustments, adjustment 1, 2, whatever. And so that would be, so it's all really preparation for you to do your sticker exercise. So we're gonna go through these, and then those last two, we're gonna have let you guys think about whether you want to have these be. It's going to be its own variant of an option. It's not going to be an override of what you have. It's going to be you have F right now, and you'll have an F-1. So you can determine whether you like the F option as it sits now, or whether you like F option with these adjustments made. And so once we come to that determination, then it's going to determine what's putting up on the board for consideration for your stickers. Then you're going to go put 2 stickers on the east and 2 on the west, and you're going to say you like, which 2 are the best that you feel off of the build on this work.
So the only analysis I have for F1 and F2 is what? Just viewing it up on the screen?
Is what the information that's on the screen as it sits now. Yes, sir. And I will give you, I will let you get up and come up and look at it so that you can see the numbers as well if you feel like you'd like to review them and see how they look. But I have not I have not had time to run numbers on them. I did get some data. I did get the last one that I mentioned early in the week, and so I was able to run some numbers on this so I have some numbers to validate with this. But this one I was not able to do anything with it. But it was done in a manner that I do feel like it's reliable in terms of the adjusted utilization and so on and so forth. So let's just go down the list. Are you guys ready? Would you guys like to take a second to look at these and kind of think about it before we start raising hands and deciding if you want to take yay or nay on these? Yeah, I'll give you some time to soak this in, and we can move the slides. So I'll give you some time to soak it all in, and then we'll determine if you guys want to move with them or not. maybe if we could regroup, we'll get back to it at about 7:40, in about a minute. I don't know if everybody's taking breaks or whatnot. Okay, so let's go ahead and start from the top here. Okay. So the first adjustment that was posed is an adjustment for option E to move planning block 133, which is Weddington Chase, from Marvin Ridge to Weddington Middle High School to Weddington Middle High School. No change to elementary, but it would require an adjustment to middle high school, and it would be it reduces the impact, but it does creates an additional split at Marvin. And planning block 132 would have to go along with it, which doesn't have any population in it. Anybody want to make any comments before I have you do a show of hands to if you want to make this as an adjustment to option E, middle high school? Okay, so I'm going to wait for Mr. Benchen to get back. While we're doing that, just talking about some of the other, looking at the numbers, and the numbers do look reliable to what I'm looking at in terms of the impacts that have been noted in some of these adjustments. So you'll just have to rely on what data that you have to determine the impact on these, knowing that there could be further adjustments at the January meeting. This is really still draft going into the public information session. So for the first adjustment, I'd like to see if you feel like it is viable to make this adjustment one. Yeah. Yes.
We were discussing this during break and looking at maps and everything, and we understand the need, but we want to point out to the committee that planning block specifically and the ones around them are already getting that desired result in maps B and F.
That's right.
And if we make that change, the other planning blocks around them would not get that change, and we don't want to create an issue within neighborhoods. So I just wanted to point out that change has already been made in maps B and F.
Yes, it's a good point. It is reflected in the other options. So if you as a committee feel like we should amend option E as it sits, as you have it here, to move planning block 133 from Marvin Ridge Middle High School to Weddington Middle High School, and then also planning block 132. If you feel like this change should be made to the to option E as it sits, please raise your hand. Okay. And if you are opposed to making this adjustment for option E, please raise your hand. Okay. Any question? Let's do this one more time. I think I saw 2 hands for the suggestion to move it. 132 is just a planning block right next to it that connects the two. It's Weddington Chase. Let me see. Let me drive again. Okay, what it doesn't have, it's Broom's Old Mill Road. It's just a kind of a rural route right here that's in its own planning block. And this is the planning block 133 that was being considered. Okay. So one more time so I can get a clean record. If you feel like we should make this adjustment to option E, please raise your hand. Okay. 3. And if you feel like we should not make this adjustment to option E, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay, so the majority feel that we should not make this adjustment 1. So adjustment 1 doesn't go through. Okay, the second one is the Cavalon subdivision moved to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High School. This would be for all options, right? Yeah, because it's in Newtown and Cuthbertson right now. And on 12 Mile Creek Road, it's 4 students, 15 elementaries, 4 middles, and 4 highs. So Weddington Elementary would gain 15 students in every option. And then the middle and high for Weddington would go up by 4 each. Any comments or questions about this before you guys raise your hands to choose?
Yeah, and your research put all the schools, all the neighborhoods on 12 Mile Creek, and for good flow.
And looking at just a quick glance at Weddington's utilization, option F is the only one where Weddington is at 103%. So it would bring Weddington further overcrowded elementary in option F. It would take it right at about 100% in option E, and it would there's room in option B for it to go. It would stay in the low 90s. In your middle and high school, Weddington Middle is at 101% in B, so it would go up. And Cuthbertson's at 94%. Weddington Middle is at 93% in E. Cuthbertson is 103%, and then in F, Weddington Middle is at 105%. So it does create some, although it does help with transportation, it does create some more imbalances in utilization, and then also makes the impacts greater, although it's a small number of students impacted. Do you guys have any comments on that, or anything that you want to share before you guys raise your hands on this one? Okay, so if you are in favor of moving the Cavalon subdivision to Weddington Elementary Middle School in the options, if you're in favor of moving that as an amendment to the options, please raise your hand. Okay, see, please keep your hands up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. If you're opposed to making this adjustment, to moving this area to Weddington Elementary Middle in the options, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So 7 said no. So there was one more. Eight people said yes to this. 7 said no. So this adjustment will go through in the draft options for the public for option for the options. Okay. 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 Adjustment 3, moving planning block 252, Weddington Ridge to Parkwood Middle School, High School, in all options. And that's 4 middle school, 2 high school students, zoning them to Parkwood, as opposed to in options B, they're in Weddington, and option F, and B, neither in Weddington, and option F, they're in Monroe Middle High School. It's a small number, and rezoning is to send to closer, reasoning to send to a closer school, increase the split feed percentage for Rocky River Elementary School. Any comments on that before you guys decide? Okay. Okay, so if you are in favor of adjustment 3 to move planning block 252 to Parkwood Middle School, High School in all options, if you're in favor of making that adjustment as an amendment to all options, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, eight hands. Okay. If you're opposed to making the adjustment to 252 to Weddington Ridge to Parkwood Middle School, High School, if you're opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. 4, 5, 6. Okay. Okay. So that one carries through too. Adjustment 3, PB 252.
Matthew, since we know 8 is the breaking point, there's probably not a need to ask for the next vote.
Say, yeah, okay, thank you. Parkwood, all options. Thank you. Okay, planning block 254, adjustment number 4, planning block 254 to Monroe. Monroe Middle School or Monroe Middle High. And now let me make sure that I'm clear on this. This would go, would this be for all options, planning block 254?
I mean, that's what I was thinking, because they're at Monroe now, so just keep them there. But I don't know if Lee had that on his sheet.
Well, here's one thing to think about is that option B, that area is zoned to Wesley Chapel Elementary School. So if it goes, if the elementary school doesn't change and it goes to Monroe, then you have a very small split from elementary to middle.
So it'd have to be Rocky River, Monroe.
So it would have to be Rocky. It would have to be Rocky River / Monroe. Same thing with option E. It's in Wesley Chapel, and then in option F, it's in Rocky River. So it would be so the amendment would be 254 to Rocky River and Monroe schools. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. So planning block 254, adjustment 4, to move planning block 254 to Rocky River Elementary School, Monroe Middle High School in all options. If you're in favor of that, please raise your hand. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we have 8 on that, so that carries. Okay. PB 254, Rocky River. Okay. Okay. Moving adjustment 5 is planning block 149, and I have got my notes, my modified notes here. For this, it would be planning block 149 for option B, planning block 149 and 138 to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High School. So I guess we'll do that one. We'll do that one first, since that's a since they're really two separate for B and E. They differ.
Can I make a comment? Because based on the suggestions, because I caught this after they said it, where I missed the planning block 140 not being included in option B, that it would put it over capacity. So I just want to make that clear in when the numbers are redone for specifically option B, that moving planning block 149 and 138 along with planning block 140 would throw it over.
Okay, for Weddington Elementary. Okay. Okay. So.
And thank you. That's the point I was going to make on that too. It's like you have to have an exclave out there.
Okay, so for this adjustment 5, and it's been changed. So it's moving planning block 149, 138, and 140 to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High School for option B. If you are in favor of that adjustment, please raise your hand as an amendment to option B. Adjustment number 5, it's been modified since what I've written up here. It's these differ now. Highgate is in Rayview and Marvin in all options, and these we're talking about communities west of Providence Road. That these are currently in Highgate's currently in Antioch and Weddington. Steeplechase in Weddington Estates is currently in Weddington Elementary and Weddington Middle. So the first adjustment is to move these planning block 149, 138, and 140 to Weddington Elementary, Middle, and High School. If you're in favor of making that adjustment to option B, please raise your hand. Yes.
I think given the discussion now, I think 5 and 6 are kind of merged together because you'd have to do both at the same time. And if you do that, you're going to really overload Weddington and underutilize Rayview. Thank you.
Right, which is why I was asking about doing the split after the elementary piece, and so you're creating a split here, or the option of a split.
Yeah. Because it'd have to be 140. That's why 140 was included, because 140 would then connect the 138 to Weddington. Yeah, it's really, we're talking about 3 planning blocks now. Yeah. So, but if those 3 are included, then there isn't an enclave, there isn't a satellite.
Can I ask a question? What if we leave them at Rayview Elementary, but then move the middle and high? And keep middle and high Weddington?
Because it overloads the middle and high school then. Weddington's still going up.
It only loads up the middle school.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I was looking at those numbers too. I just pulled them up here. Weddington High School is still going up. Will be for the next 5 years. It's only about 50 students, but it's still going up. So you really don't want to load it up. Marvin's going down already, and will be going down for the next 5 years, probably the next 10 years actually.
Weddington Middle is 101% in B. So adding more to it is only going to make it worse than 101. Okay. And then the high school, there is space, but in the elementaries, you know, like you had said, it is in option B, Antioch is 105%. But we're talking about Weddington here. So It's 84% of elementary. So it's going to further overcrowd Weddington and option B. And in terms of the elementary school for Weddington, there is about 108 seats, 107 seats still in option B. And you have right about that. So it's going to put Weddington right at about 100% and close to 100%, maybe a little bit below 100% if this does go for Weddington Elementary School. And then your high school, you do have adequate space.
Because on the high school level, it looks like you wouldn't be all three. It wouldn't be all three planning blocks. It would be 138, 149. 140 is already moved.
Okay.
This is an option.
On option B, yeah.
Yeah, option B is already moved. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah.
In option B, 140 is already in Weddington?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. In the middle school and high school options. Yeah, because it goes along Providence Road up here on all options. So it's really an elementary adjustment would be that, but the 140 is already there. So it's moving planning block 149, 138, 140 to Weddington Elementary, and then 149 and 138 to Weddington Middle and High. Split it into a different. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So let's
in B only, right? B only. Okay.
Okay. So then so for adjustment 5, let's start at elementary school to move planning blocks 149, 138, and 140 to Weddington Elementary School in option B.
That doesn't, so in option B, 140, just FYI, 140 doesn't go to Weddington. So, okay, I just have to clarify here. I personally feel like I made a mistake. If I had noticed the 140, then I wouldn't have made the other suggestion at the elementary school level. So what my suggestion would be at the elementary school level to change planning block 140 into Weddington Elementary School, and for option B to split feed planning block 138 and 149. And also the split feeder for Rayview, if you look at it, it will get closer to a 60-40 split instead of the 75-25 split. It is in option B.
So, but as you stated, we are talking about these feeding into Weddington Elementary School.
Change it to Antioch.
Saying basically based on what everybody else is saying, that I agree with them, and that had I not missed planning block 140, that I would have made the same suggestion everybody else is making currently, that planning block 140 move into Weddington.
Right.
However, planning block 138 and 149 be split feed, stay in Ray, but go back in for Weddington Middle and Weddington High. That's what I said.
Okay, so the elementary adjustment that you're suggesting for option B is planning block 140 into Weddington Weddington Elementary School. So that's 50 students, Weddington Elementary School. It would gain 50 students to Weddington minus 50 at Rayview in this adjustment. Elementary. No. Look at elementary option B.
Yeah.
If you look at elementary option B, you see that area east of Providence. So it'd be plus 50 at Weddington Elementary School in option B. So the first vote is to move planning block 140 to Weddington Elementary School in option B. If you're in favor of moving planning block 140 to Weddington Elementary School in option B, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. Okay. So that one carries. Okay. So the second piece is to move 149 to 138 to Weddington Middle High School in option B, right?
But if you look at the split feed already, like the percentages, yeah, it's this.
Okay. So if you are in favor of moving planning block 138 and 149, make as an amendment to option B, you're in favor of moving 138 and 149 to Weddington Middle School High School, please raise your hand.
Matthew, can I ask one
Yes,
question?
yes.
Are we going to look at this also for E and F or just B?
There is an E adjustment here that's noted, so that's going to be next.
That'll be, okay.
Yeah.
But on that note, you want to make sure you're not making a change in all of the maps and not leaving any options. So if you have it in B, this is a B option, E and F, whatever it could be, still, you know, I think one of the concerns here was there was no option where Highgate moves at all. Well, here now there's an option for it. Okay.
But I was just looking at the numbers of Weddington and Marvin Ridge Middle School, and it makes more sense in E because of 105% and 93% versus B with 96 and 101. So I'm okay with moving them in one of the options, but I didn't like B.
B
so
may
I
not be the
was
best
just
one.
making, yeah.
Good point.
Okay. Okay. So before we get to E, let's finish B. So if you are in favor of moving planning block 138 and 149 to Weddington Middle School High School in option B, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Okay, so that vote does not carry. Okay. So, and make sure I'm doing this right, Claudia, for this next one, because it's the next one is that, as I have noted, 149, planning block 149 to Antioch Elementary School. And then planning block in the Weddington Middle.
Well, it would be keeping them the same. So it's making no change to where planning block 149 goes and planning block
But
138
in option
goes.
E, they are
option E.
Yeah.
Are we discussing E, right?
Yes, but in
Yeah.
option E, they are moved to Rayview.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So sorry. It would mean that they would continue going where they're going currently.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll do this one by one. We'll do elementary first, since there are two different adjustments here, and then we'll do all of it, one middle and high school adjustment vote here. So for option E, moving planning block 149 to Antioch Elementary School. Antioch is sitting at 99% and 93% in option E. So it would not take them over 100%. But it would be a, depending on the next one, it would be a small split feed for the schools. But so if you are in favor of moving planning block 149 to Antioch Elementary School in option E, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay, let me do it again. Okay, so if you are in favor of moving planning block 149 from option E in option E, if you're in favor of moving planning block 149 to Antioch Elementary School for option E, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay. All right. So that didn't pass. Okay. Now the next adjustment is planning block 138 moved to Weddington Elementary School in option E. And it wouldn't create a split feed or anything. So if you're in favor of moving planning block 138 to Weddington Elementary School in option E. If you're in favor of moving planning block 138 to Weddington Elementary School in option E, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Everybody realizes that planning block 138 is south of 149, right? Just I'm just saying that it just, you know. Just
What's that comment regarding?
Meaning, so when I proposed these were to be done together.
Together.
And the reason why is because 149 is north of 138. So, and in everybody wanting to know the math on this. So if you basically keep those kids where they are currently today, Antioch would be at 96% capacity, Weddington Elementary School would be at 100% capacity, Weddington Middle School would be at 94% capacity, and Weddington High School would be at 77% capacity.
And what would Rayview be at?
Rayview would be, where is
Rayview? Rayview in option E is at 80%.
Not option E, it's on 92%.
Oh, I'm
so it would
sorry.
be higher than option F.
92%.
It would be higher than option F. It would be.
You're pulling them out of Rayview, right?
It would drop from 92 down to it's a loss of 23 students. So 23 students out of Rayview would be 667.
23 in both of them, or just the one?
Just the one. So it would be 644 out of 728 capacity. So it would go
about 4 percentage points.
And it's because I'm saying that the kids who are going to Antioch stay in Antioch, and the kids that go to Weddington. So it's really, she's saying that what you're saying, I understand, it's not just 26 and 23 kids, it's the total between 26 and 23 kids. Mm-hmm. But that's still, my point is, doesn't decrease it as much as it's Rayview's decreased in option F.
It would go to 88%. Rayview would be 92 down to 88%.
Yeah,
I think Dr. McKibben was just noting that because of the decline, the forecasted decline at Rayview, that you know, yeah.
And if you take them both out, it drops it to about 84.
Well, the planning block 149 to Antioch did not pass, so that stays in Rayview.
Okay.
So now we're just talking about this planning block moving to Weddington. So if you are in favor, let me do it one more time. If you're in favor of moving planning block 138 and option E to Weddington Elementary School, please raise your hand. Okay, so that one did not carry. Okay. Now we're going to look at middle high. Yep, for this area. And this is one vote for middle high because now we're talking about 149 and 138 going to Weddington Middle High. Okay, so it would be these would be Rayview. Rayview would be in Rayview, and they would go to Weddington Middle High School. And this would be option B. Would this be B? Are you talking about B, E, and F, and all three options? These two planning blocks going? Okay. Okay. Okay, Weddington Middle is 101% in B, is 105% in F. Option E would be the one. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So the suggestion is to move planning blocks 149 and 138 in option E to Weddington Middle School, High School. There's no elementary change to the options. They would be split from Rayview to Weddington and go to Weddington Middle High School. Yep. Okay. So if you're in favor of moving planning blocks 149 and 138, oh yes.
I just want to be sure that I understand. I believe in map B, there is a split feeder with Rayview and Weddington, which is maybe a 25%. So if we turn down B for this change and moving it to E, it would make the split, if it happened in E, more disproportionate than if we kept it in B, because, for example, Weddington Chase, I believe, is in a split feed situation, and this would be another split feed situation into Weddington to make the split feed even somewhat more in B than if we put it in E. Am I understanding this correctly, Matthew?
There would be the Rayview crosses over Providence Road in elementary option B, and the split and it is split to Weddington because in option B, but it does not. That still doesn't resolve the conversation we had before you guys cast the vote about utilization concerns for B, for Weddington and for the others. So I think that the vote still stands that you guys had for B, that you guys had cast. What we're talking about now is moving planning block 149 and 138 to Weddington Middle High School in option E. So you guys have any questions about that?
I mean, the only question I would ask is, it looked like there were people kind of agreeing when we were talking about doing this in E that voted against it in B. I would just say from our perspective, what makes sense about E that didn't make sense in B? If you voted no for it then, but would vote yes for it now, why? Maybe.
I can absolutely speak to that and say, looking at the utilization numbers of Marvin Ridge Middle School and Weddington Middle School, it makes more sense to shift the numbers there. I still have issues, and I'm trying to work it out for myself on crossing Providence, and is that a line to keep? So that's where I'm going back and forth. in option B, I can't look at moving more kids into Weddington Middle School, and the same in option F, without others moving out to account for that. So that's the quandary I'm having.
Well, so I mean, if it helps at all, there, I mean, you're taking kids away from their schools that they're currently in by doing that. So
I think that we discussed option B, the adjustments and the impacts on B. That Weddington's 101% in option B, it's 105% in option F. Moving more students in there brings those numbers up. So that's what we had discussed, and that's what we were made clear before we voted. So I think the option B decision has been made. In the reasoning that option E, that people have been talking about supporting option E, not necessarily, I don't know if they're going to support it or not, but the justification for option E and not B and F is that Weddington's at 93%, and you're talking about moving 23.
I'm sorry, that was the reason I suggested it be done together with the elementary school, so those kids aren't separated into a Rayview situation and then going to Weddington, because you're creating a tiny itty bitty split feed. So that's why I was saying that went together, so that since the numbers worked out for those elementary schools, and I understand the thought of capacity, and at some point I do, I get it, but I saw the value of the kids, if they're able to stay at those schools and the numbers worked out, them staying there.
I'm not following,
the logic.
So, again, we discussed for about 10 minutes about this option B adjustment that we just got through with. And so of option E, that's what I'm talking about. So I'd like to again ask for planning blocks 149 and 138 moving to Weddington Middle School, High School. And be mindful that we considered an elementary adjustment like we discussed, and it was not accepted. So now we're focused on middle and high school adjustment only, knowing that yes, Rayview will have a small split. You're talking about 23 or so students. So it's a very small split from Rayview to Weddington Middle, if this adjustment does occur. But do you still want to provide this suggestion? I mean, is it something that you think is still viable since we made
That's what my logic was, that they should go together, both the elementary school and the middle school change. I wouldn't have, in option E, I would not have separated the two. There's a difference between option B and this option E. And so that was my point and my logic, saying that creating an itty bitty split feed doesn't work in option E.
Okay. Well, then let's make this for the record then, because it's on the floor here. Planning blocks 149 and 138 to Weddington Middle School as a change for option E. If you feel like that adjustment should occur, please raise your hand. Okay. 5. Please, no. I'm serious. You guys, please don't interfere with the committee's work. This is a voting procedure. Please be quiet, okay? I'm sorry.
Can you just repeat what we're voting for?
Yes.
Specifically? Thank you.
Planning blocks 149 and 138 in option E, moving to Weddington Middle School, High School. If you're in favor of moving planning blocks 149 and 138 in option E to Weddington Middle School and High School, please raise your hand.
Matthew, I think it may help just a tiny bit to know that Highgate is still at Rayview in this
It would still be a Rayview, and you'd have about 24 students being split from Rayview to Weddington, where the rest of the Rayview population goes to Marvin. So you're talking about probably a 3-5% split here. Okay. So if you're in favor of this adjustment, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 6. Okay. So this does not carry. All right. Okay. So I think we've covered 5 and 6. Adjustment 7 is for option F, middle school, high school, to move Briarcrest north-south, planning blocks 84, 85, and 425, which is Briarcrest north and south, Tusky, Pleasant Grove, to Cuthbertson Middle School, High School. And this is an adjustment to option F for middle school and high school. You've got calculator. Give me a little. It's 26. You'd be adding 85 students to Cuthbertson Middle School, which is current in option F, 96% utilization. So it would be at 1354. So Cuthbertson would be at 103% utilization if this adjustment were to occur, which is similar to option E. Parkwood Middle would go, it's 80%. So Parkwood Middle would go 791 minus 85, 706. So 72% utilization would be Parkwood. So you'd have Cuthbertson at 103. Park would be about 72%. And at high school, and at your high school, $37 plus 30 plus 29. 96 high schoolers. So Cuthbertson would go from 96% in option F, 1730 to 1826. Takes it to 102% utilization at Cuthbertson. And Parkwood, 915 out of 1376. Parkwood would go to 66% or 67%. Okay. So for adjustment 7, if any other comments or questions about that? Anybody want to make anything before we vote? Okay. So this is just middle school, high school. And if you are in favor of moving planning blocks 84, 85, 425 to Cuthbertson Middle School, High School, and option F, please raise your hand. Okay, so that does not carry. All right. Option E moves planning block 112 to Marvin. And option E, I'm sorry guys, we're over time here, but all these adjustments came in. We just got to get them worked out. So so you're talking about planning blocks, let's see, planning block 112. In option E, it's in Rayview. And it is 4 elementary students. 4 elementary students. So it's right there along Crane Road, right across from Drayton Hall, which is an area that we moved back. So this suggestion is to move planning block 112 back into Marvin Elementary School, which is where they currently go. Small number of students, 4 students. It's not going to have a substantial impact on utilization of either school. No, it won't. It's contiguous. It is contiguous. So, any questions or comments about this planning block? Okay, PB.
And Matt, this is where they currently go, right?
They currently go to Marvin. Yes, sir. So if you're in favor of moving planning block 112 back to Marvin from Rayview in option F, option E, okay. Sorry. So if you're in favor of moving planning block 112 in option E back to Marvin Elementary School, please raise your hand. And they currently go there, yes. Okay. So that one carries. So that's a minor adjustment, not really big deal in terms of numbers and utilization. All right. This Colonial Village over there, it's in Rocky River right now. It's and it's currently going to Monroe. It's off of Rocky River Road, the far western part of Rocky River Elementary School zone. The suggestion is to split planning block 259 so that Colonial Village goes to Sun Valley Middle School, High School instead of Monroe. But no adjustment to elementary. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And this would be an option.
It was in map option E.
Okay. And option E. Okay. This so you've got 19 middle school students in planning block 259 in the entire planning block, which includes other subdivisions. In an option F, I mean, in your high school counts show 28. So if we split this off, it's going to be a smaller number. And this would be the only part of Rocky River. You said option E, is that right? Okay. This would be, okay, another part of Rocky River gets moved, so there would be still a viable split because you're moving that other area, so 256, 419, and 255. So it would work in terms of the split percentage, and the reasoning is for transportation efficiency. You guys have any comments about that adjustment? Is that clear? The percentages of splits? Okay.
My question would be, if you're taking those children from Monroe and putting them in Sun Valley, what is the percentage of usage at Monroe versus Sun Valley? Like, how is that going to impact the school?
Monroe's at 74% in E, okay? Monroe Middle, 74% in E, 97% at Sun Valley. You're talking 19 middle schoolers. If I split that, it's probably going to be a smaller number than that. So you'll be, but it is going to lower the utilization at Monroe and raise the utilization at Sun Valley. It's not a big number, but it's still going to impact the numbers. At your high school, Monroe is at 77%, Sun Valley is at 90%. And so the same concept will occur, that you will increase a bigger imbalance between the two schools. So you'll lose efficiency in terms of utilization and balance, but you'll gain some on transportation efficiency.
I really don't see a transportation problem.
Ms. May, did you have a comment?
Well, I was just wondering, there's those changes we have for Monroe, but are those going to be separate?
That's going to be a separate. We're going to do a whole. We're not going to go one by one on yours or Mr. Hainage's. Those are going to be accept or not accept.
Like 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once we get through this, we only have about three more votes, and then we'll get to the stickers. Okay.
Can I just say something? If you look at the distance, just FYI, it's 3.8 miles to, because we just double checked it, 3.8 miles to Sun Valley, and it's 6.8 to Monroe.
Okay. So if you are in favor, and this is option E, right?
Matt,
Yes, sir.
don't call me sir. Doesn't this create a very, very small feeder split?
It does not for option E because the committee decided that one of the modifications, the last one, was to move a Rocky River portion into Sun Valley. And so there's a big chunk of
So it's just adding to
yeah,
that.
it's
then.
adding to that. So the percentage would actually go up. The Rocky River split would actually be more efficient. You'd have a better split, you'd have worse utilization, and you'd have better transportation proximity in terms of mileage. Okay. So any other comments about this one? Okay, so the suggestion is to split planning block 259, so Colonial Village goes to Sun Valley Middle High School in option E. If you're in favor of Colonial Village going to Sun Valley Middle School High School in option E, please raise your hand. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that does not carry. Okay. All right. Adjustment number 10. For options B, E, and F, keep Lawyers Road communities, which the planning blocks are noted here, 273, 276, 275, 274, 278, 387. Keep them in Fairview Elementary School, but then let them go to continue to Porter Ridge Middle High School. This is an adjustment that's being suggested for options B, E, and F at the elementary level. Any questions about this?
What kind of split feed will that cause for Fairview?
Well, this is going to
It's going to be very small. Isn't it?
I think one of my bigger concerns of this one is utilization at Stallings, because you've got Stallings. You're taking, I was looking at the counts, you've taken about over 100 students out of Stallings because you've got, let me see here.
Yeah.
273, 48 plus 276, 56. So you're at 104 with just those. 275 plus 2 plus 22. You're talking almost 192 students. Maybe not that. Hold on. 273, 48. 276, 56. 275, 23. 274. 274. What's 274? No, I'm not counting the right thing here. Okay, there's 274. 274, 275, 276, 73. Okay.
Matt, can I just say that at Stallings, there's already, on my hallway alone, 5 empty classrooms, and taking that many kids away.
Yeah.
From us, I feel like would be devastating.
It's 109 students. So you're talking about Stallings going. Stallings is 674 in every single option. That takes them to 565, 750, 75% was what Stallings would go to. Stallings is currently at 72%. Fairview would go 109. See, 349. So it would improve Fairview. 458 out of 631. Fairview would go to 73%. And then in option B, in option E and F, divided by, what is happening? 631. 80%. So you'd have 80% Fairview, 75% Stallings.
But keep in mind, this is like the 6th farthest school for them to stay there.
That's right. So you're correct. I mean, I think the pros are you get a better balance of utilization, which I think was the intent of this, to you balance utilization at Fairview and bring them up higher. The cons to this are, and then also another pro is that they're already going to Fairview, so you reduce the number of students impacted. The cons is that you are assigning students to a farther school, where they're currently going, but it is farther than Stallings.
But you're doing it in all three options. And so you're not really creating a choice here at all. So maybe do it in B and E or E and F or B and F or whatever, but at least give them some choice here, because that's what it's de facto done. You do it in all three methods or all three models.
Well, anything's draft. They could still decide that they wanted it back at the next meeting, but I do hear what you're saying. It's if this change does happen in the Lawyers Road area, and all options would be assigned to Fairview. And there are a couple of others up in there that are actually would still be moved to Stallings based on your
Well, I think public should have an input on that. So I'm fine with it not being all three options, because
Okay.
public should have a choice on that.
Okay, then if that's the case, see, because it's 271 and 272 are in Fairview and they are moved out to Stallings, but you didn't include them on the list. But okay, so which would you like to modify? Which, either as an option or two or one option that you'd like to suggest? Option B has a lower number at Fairview. Option B has 349 at Fairview. Option E and F have 397 because that picked up the eastern part of that areas that we were adding back in to give Unionville some relief. That was a conversation we were having earlier.
So if that's the one for utilization that makes the most sense, then that's one that should be voted on then.
Option B. Okay. So adjustment 10 is for option B only. And this is elementary school only. To move planning blocks 273, 276, 275, 274, 278, and 387. Move them back to Fairview in option B. If you're in favor of that, just for option B, not option E and F, just for option B. If you're in favor of making that adjustment, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that did not carry. Okay. All right. Thanks. I appreciate you guys' patience here. Okay, so now these are really I know that there was a discussion at the break about option F being the option F modifications you made being incorporated into Mr. Hainage's suggestions. Is that something that did you talk about? Huh? Oh, there was overlap? Okay, so that wouldn't work. The F options conflicted with his F suggestions? Oh, they complement each other so that we can keep them together. Okay, so then, okay. Let me just lay that out then real quick first, okay? So we've got option F adjustments that were posed, and what this vote is for is to put a variation of option F out there. So the option F stays as it is, but this is F-1. This is a new option, a modified option F. But in addition to that, we'd like to pick up the adjustments that were talked about, Poplin, 240 and 241, shifting them to Piedmont and Porter Ridge, and option F as a sort of an addendum to Mr. Hainage's comments. Okay. No. Well, I was looking at F 240 and 241 are in Piedmont and Porter Ridge, and option F. Was the thought to keep them in Porter Ridge? Let's see. Yeah, move from Piedmont to Porter Ridge of Poplan. Yeah. No, I think we actually heard from that. We did get some public feedback from that area, that community that was concerned about that, about the adjustment. There was some email from this community about this area.
Yeah, so it was just to fix that little split from Poplan so that everybody went to Porter Ridge.
Okay.
from Poplan.
Okay. So this would be, so moving 240 and 241 would accompany the adjustments, since they complement or supplement these adjustments. It would come into this fold. Okay. So what this vote, are there any questions about this? Would you guys, I mean, I don't, there's numbers up here. I don't know if you had time to look at the percentages and things like that. I have studied them. You know, I did get this today, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to really look at splits and all of that stuff, but I have looking at utilization. It does look like, you know, the result, you know, Forest Hills goes down into the high 60s in an adjustment. That was one that I had kind of seen as a low number. And then looking at the other adjustments here, you've got Rocky River at 67% as an adjusted utilization in this. So that's on the low side.
Matthew, can I ask a question?
But yes.
Is it possible, because there are a lot of changes and it's going to look very different, could we hold off on that until we can actually see the map for all of these, for all of what's been suggested here for those? I know that then it doesn't give it for the public input.
Yeah.
But the public can look and see this too now. I just don't feel comfortable, even though I agree with a lot of these changes, until seeing how it affects the numbers. I agreed with the changes that I helped propose before, and then didn't realize that there was oversight on like Rocky River.
On the Rocky River.
And a couple of the other schools. So
I could bring it back. I could bring it back to January 18th meeting, but it will be a change that moves a lot of people, and it would not have any vetting by the public. So there is a risk there. You know, you really like to have, if there's changes that want to be made, now's the time to make them. You know, I was unable to make maps and things like that, given the time of it, but if that's what the committee feels, if you'd like me to bring back this option in January as a look, I mean, you can do so, but I do think that that's running a risk. Yeah. I mean, and this isn't a vote to bring it to the public information session. This is a vote just to put it on the board for you to have an option to put a sticker on it or not. And I think you understand that, but
Matt, are you going to list F1 east and west? I mean, because this appears to be mostly centered on the west. I mean, on the east.
It would. There are adjustments though to Sun Valley, Shiloh. So it would have to be both. It would, but I would split it up into east and west. If it does carry through, it would be an F east and an F1 east and F1 west.
Okay. As well as the changes that were approved and passed through prior to this.
Yes. Because if it were all just only east changes, we could just make it an east adjustment for F. But since it does impact Shiloh and Sun Valley, Parkwood, so it has to come into play.
So then when we do the sticker exercise, we would get 2 stickers, and then we would have a B, an E, an F, an F1.
Right.
And we would have to decide right now whether we liked F or F1.
That's
or
right.
B or, okay.
Yeah. And you could always use this. I could model this if you decide not to take this to the public information session, or if it doesn't make it and you want me to model these so you can maybe pick pieces and parts of this to make adjustments to. I mean, we can always do that in January. I can give you those more concrete data to support that.
Can I ask a question? So it's not, never mind, because I know you just want 2 maps. Because I was going to say, because some of these schools, they're changed to a year-round school, right? So yeah, that's why I'm thinking public input would be really key there. But you don't want to generate another map to present to them beforehand.
So Lee, are more students impacted in this or in the current F?
And so you've got, and these numbers down here are really the ones that are meant to be, that was modeled with this. And there was a number if these top ones are made without 1 and 3 changes, but this is really the comprehensive result of making all the adjustments for your for elementaries if all of the adjustments as per this proposal were to be implemented. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that what we can do is we can bring this up if as a vote to have it for consideration for the stickers. If this doesn't make it, I will still run numbers on this to give you guys data to see what the results of this are, okay? So if you are in favor of proffering this up as an additional option to be considered for the sticker exercise, option F1, which includes the area that was moved from Piedmont to Porter Ridge per the other group's suggestion. If you're in favor of making this option an option F1 to be considered for the sticker exercise, please raise your hand. Okay, so we do have, so that's going to be on the list. Okay. Okay. Now the next one are the adjustments that have been suggested here. And I think that really what this would be is a B1 and an E1 map that would be considered as opposed to amendments to the other options. Okay, let's take a look. So 140 back to Weddington Elementary. That one passed. So that one already had passed.
Matthew, these look like we could look at each one and
You wanna look at these
and then hit a vote on them.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I could take a look and see what we've already done too, and give you some numbers. Okay. So let's start with map B. Let's start with map B then. It's starting at the top. I'll start with B and then I'll move to E to make this, to try to get an idea of what we're doing here. So in map B, planning block 93 would go to Marvin Elementary School. Okay. And for elementary only, because they already feed into Marvin Ridge. I'm going to take a look here. It's the same neighborhood that's moved. It's planning block 93, and it is Ladera, Providence Downs, Fincher Valley, McGee Valley, Windmore, and Broadmoor. You could see it there. Did you guys see it on your interactive map? And this is an area this is the same area that was moved in elementary option F to Marvin, which is what probably prompted this thought from Sandy Ridge. 102 students. Let's see here. 102 students for option B. So Sandy Ridge is at 106% in option B, and in Marvin, it's at 78%. So it does balance utilization. The numbers would look very similar to option F for, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not sure. Yeah. Well, because there was probably some other, I think option F has some other adjustments over be modified. Yeah, it picks up another area. So you want me to give you a quick count number? Okay. So Sandy Ridge, option B, 748 plus 102. No, 748 minus 102 to Sandy Ridge. 646 is what Sandy Ridge would be. The capacity is 704. Sandy Ridge is at 92%. And if that were to occur, Marvin would go 567 plus 102, 669 out of 728, 92%. They both would be balanced at about 92%. They are currently at Sandy Ridge. They would move from Sandy Ridge to Marvin. It's the far northwestern corner of the current Sandy Ridge boundary. It is, they are very close to Marvin, yeah. They're in proximity. You're talking McGee Valley, Fincher Valley, Windmore, Broadmoor, Providence Downs South, Ladera. Those are the communities. They would all be these communities all can come off from Waxhaw Marvin Road, and they can go feed right up to Ray to get into I think it's Ray. Is that Ray? No. Marvin. It's Newtown Road, and then cross over to Marvin School Road. Okay. All right. So, and we have not done, I'm just thinking about other impacts. So it's 92% with balance utilization making this adjustment, like it says right here on the page. Thank you. Please tell me. Okay. Planning block 93 to Marvin Elementary School for map B. If you're in favor of planning block 93 moving to Marvin Elementary School from Sandy Ridge and map B, raise your hand. Okay. That carries. Okay. Enough. Okay, I'm just going to check this off since I have it. All right. Planning block 89, or part of it, which is an undeveloped area that has new construction ongoing, moving from, and it's currently in Kensington in the northeast corner of the planning block, moving into Sandy Ridge. Any questions about that? No, that area would not go to Kensington. It would go to Sandy Ridge, and then they would all feed into. Well, you would say they'd go to Marvin, right? So that area would be rezoned to Sandy Ridge and then Marvin, front Kensington, Cuthbertson. With it's a population, there's no population in there right now. No students would be impacted. Okay. So if you're in favor of planning block, the splitting of planning block 89, the undeveloped area, and sending it to Sandy Ridge and Marvin Ridge Middle High School, if you're in favor of that adjustment, please raise your hand. Okay, we definitely have a majority. Okay, and I'm just going to note Marvin Ridge. Okay. We're almost there. Planning block 140. Already did that. Thank you. Okay. And then, okay, so for maps, let's just go down, finish map B, and then we'll talk E because they differ. So planning block 419, move to, and 256 moving to Shiloh. Planning blocks 419 and 256 moving to Shiloh. It puts Shiloh at 86%, Rocky River at 94%. Is this which area is this? Okay. 419, 256. 419, 256. Where are they currently zoned in option B? Oh, out of Rocky River. Okay. Block 419. Oh, 419 and 256. Okay. This is St. John's Forest. No. It's Villages of Wesley Chapel, Hampton Meadows, and Wensley Park. Going to Shiloh instead of Rocky River. Villages of Wesley Chapel. Hampton Meadows, Wensley Park.
Matthew, is there that much variance between B and E on those?
It puts Shiloh at 86% and Rocky River at 94%.
The reason I'm asking, because if it's not, we could probably tackle them both together instead of circling back around.
Oh, between B and E, like doing both at the same time?
Yeah. Because that's what her data did.
Yeah. Okay.
Matthew, I just want to point out to the committee that Shiloh is a year-round school. Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
So if we approve this, you're moving children from traditional calendar to year-round calendar.
Okay. I think what I'll do is I'm just going to have B and E do this block first because I think this is elementary. Is this elementary only? No. See, that's the problem is that they kind of mix and match here. So. Well, this keeps, okay, yeah, I was talking about the others, but that's middle school. That's middle school. Okay. Okay. And they're both, the maps B and E are the same for Shiloh and Rocky River? Okay, so it would be the same. So we can do the same vote then. So it would put a balanced utilization. Proximity is relatively comparable to both schools. So any questions or other further comments other than Shiloh's a year-round school? That is something to consider.
I'll just point out that in essence, every move in this B and E is moves that I also suggested in F. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to combining B, E, and F in these moves.
So these are the same ones. These are similar to what you had suggested in your F. But it's in, but F1 is F1 is already on the floor, so it's really it wouldn't. This is B and E adjustment, not an F adjustment. If it's already picked up at the F adjustment here, so it wouldn't matter. So if you want to move planning blocks 419, 256 to Shiloh Elementary School in maps B and E, please raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Okay. All right. Planning blocks 173 through 176 and planning block 31 keeps these students at Parkwood, where they currently go to Parkwood. Is that right? Parkwood Middle would be at 83% in map on map B and 72%. Parkwood High School would be 78.5% on map B, 66.5% on map E. And what were the thoughts? What was the rationale behind this again? If you could give us just a little overview.
Because that's where they currently go.
Okay.
Parkwood. And because we have that next shift coming up into Monroe, which is so many kids. So that way it balanced out better, because it would have been, I think, too many, with the 100 coming in.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Is there a downside?
Does anyone, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so, but Newtown Park, Newtown Acres, and then it's just individual homes.
And it lessens the impact.
Before we do this, is there is this move contingent on this move happening? Like if this gets approved and this doesn't get approved, is it going to throw a crowbar? Okay. It's Parkwood. This is Parkwood. This isn't. Okay. But this is moving from Parkwood. Where are these planning blocks going in B and E? Monroe? Okay. And you're adding 100 in, so okay. So you'd have a I guess the question is, can Monroe take, if this doesn't go and this does go, can Monroe take 103 students, or would it throw a crowbar? I mean, if that's if the answer is it causes problems, then this would be lumped together in one adjustment.
No.
That's only assuming that both carry. If the top one doesn't carry and the bottom one does, then you're moving 130.
Well, you have
103.
You have to vote on the two together.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's vote on them together, since they are.
And basically, the question is, can Monroe take an extra 70 kids?
Yeah, that would be the question.
Yes. The more
Yes,
the merrier.
Reverend Benchen is correct. 83, the Monroe is 74%. So if you move Monroe, well, she has the numbers right here, right? Monroe at 80% current. Is this number with these adjustments already incorporated? Let me see. Let me just check. So Monroe 830 plus say 70, right? 900.
Are
So-
these capacity numbers
yeah.
updated for the changes to the bond project?
Yes, they are. These do incorporate the adjustments that were made for the most recent board decision. They made some adjustments to capacity at a couple of schools, so it does account for that. Okay, so 80% is right. Now, so you're taking 31 out of Parkwood Middle. B 785, 754, 77% is Parkwood, and then for B, and then for E.
Well, that's not taking anybody out of Parkwood. That's just putting them in.
Oh, keeping them at Parkwood. So we're only adding in. So it would just improve the utilization.
30 into Parkwood,
Okay.
actually 47 into Parkwood.
Okay. Just looking back, anything else that would affect? So we did move planning block 252 into Parkwood in all options, and that was a small number though.
And that actually is next to these.
Okay. Okay. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna vote on these two considerations as a combination. So it's planning blocks 173 through 176, planning block 31 moving back to Parkwood in options B and E, and then planning blocks 335, 441 would move from Forest Hills to Monroe. These would be coming out of Monroe, be adding a net difference of about 70 into Monroe. Parkwood would be gaining 31. Forest Hills, East Union would be losing about 100 students. Forest Hills and East Union. East Union's running at 84%.
But I think that would help if we get they're overpopulated now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, yeah, because it takes Forest Hills to 66%, East Union to 75%. So so that with that said, you guys have any other questions before you guys vote on this one? Okay, so if you're in favor of making these two adjustments that I've already stated, I'm not going to say it again. If you're in favor of making those two adjustments, raise your hand to options B and E. Okay, we have majority. All right, well, the E and F, the last one I think we've already resolved, not for E though. Okay. Okay. So you've already determined that this is going to carry in the F1 variation for option F. But for option E, the question is, should we include it in option E as well? So if you are in favor of making the same adjustment we made to F to option E to resolve a small split for Poplar Elementary, moving this back to Porter Ridge instead of Piedmont for option E, 93%, Porter's 93. So Porter Ridge goes to 94%. Porter Ridge Middle 94. Porter Ridge High goes to 95%. Okay. If you're in favor of making this adjustment, the same adjustment to option E, raise your hand. 8. Okay. So that carries 2. Okay. All right. So we really only have one variation. Now we just need to do our last step. Can you shut the how do I turn just shut the power on that? Yeah, just this front one. Like if I do that right, power, stop. There we go. How do I try? Yeah, raise this screen. Yeah, why don't you guys take a short break, like a 5-minute break, and we'll do the stickers. I know some people need to take a little break. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I'm going to get set up, and then we'll do stickers, and we'll get you out of here.
Raise the screen and shuts it off.
Oh, it will?
It won't shut this off, but it shuts off.
It will? I did it last time.
Just raise it.
Yeah, this right here. No, right here. Where you'd like to place them. Say again. What was the question? Yeah, let's do green for the west and blue for the east. Okay. Blue for the east. It doesn't really matter. They're going to fall, but it's just do it. Yeah. Yeah. If you're ready, go ahead. Say what? Do any committee members need to place their stickers? Did everybody place their stickers? Okay. All right, let's do a count and pray we don't have a tie. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 4 for 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 5. Okay. We got 0, 1, 2, 4, 6. 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Okay. All right. So we do have a couple of pretty clear ones that rise to the top. B West has 12 stickers. F West has 9. So these are the two that we will take forward. Then we have F1 with 14 on the east, and we have the original F with 9 on the east. So, technically we could bring F as a whole. But my concern is if I try to, and I don't know what this looks like with merging F1 and B together at this point. So, I'd say that what we could do, since these both have a similar number, and they're the second one, F can go as a whole. This is option F. But I don't know if there's going to be any conflicts with B West and F1. Otherwise, I could merge them into one option and just call it. There were probably some adjustments to Shiloh and.
Well, what if there was one map that's complete for F, and then for the west side, the maps are B or F, and on the east side, it's F or F1.
Yeah, I think that's
and then there's 2 maps per side of the county.
Yeah. So you're saying make map F in its entirety. And then for the east, there's a B, no, and then the other option is a B West, and then an F1 East. So there'll be 3 maps per se, 3 different series. Okay. Okay. So, in naming these, we'll typically rename these for the coming into this. so you know what's what. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to rename them since we have these split. We're going to keep them. We're going to keep them named as they are. Normally now, at this point, to avoid confusion, we'd go to like Roman numeral 1 and 2. But since we've got two variations going on here, this one we've got option F, which will be one map, and then F1 we'll keep it named F1, F1 East, and then option B West. Okay. All right. Okay. Then just final housekeeping stuff here. So the public information session is Thursday, December the 14th. It's at Monroe High School. Don't come here. It's at Monroe High School. It's from 6 running. Okay. Yes, sir. So 6 to 8 p.m. Monroe High School Auditorium. If possible, committee, try to get there at 5:30 if you can, okay? At the Monroe High School Auditorium, all right? December 14th. Thank you very much for going over. I really appreciate your time. We'll